Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Books Beside My Bed video for you where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. And in true Australian fashion, we have gone from really hot days with lots and lots of sunlight to absolutely overcast and not hot. So apologies for the lighting in this particular video, it's been really hard to get it right just with the way the natural lighting situation is going, so we're just going to bear with it. Today is another wrap-up week where I'm going to have to figure out what I read that can be reviewed in this video and what is coming out in a future video in a couple of weeks time, so please don't mind me as I struggle through that. Two things I know that I have to review this week because they are coming out tomorrow are two review titles that were sent to me by Alan and Unwin, so thank you very much to them. They are two middle fiction titles. So the first one is actually a middle fiction graphic novel called Revenge of the Toxic Space Potato, an indefatigable Enviro teens story by First Dog on the Moon. So this is a full colour graphic novel for middle fiction readers. And I have to say that while it wasn't necessarily my taste for graphic novels, it will certainly appeal to the children in my classroom because they love this kind of humour. So you have a bunch of teens, Letitia, Binky and Worried Norman, who are all secretly superheroes, and they uncover a plot by the toxic space potato who is trying to steal Earth's resources, and they get caught up in all of this and they end up having to save the day. It was fun. There's a lot of humor thrown in there. There's a lot to unpack in terms of the environmental story side of it as well. They all end up on Mars, which is always fun. I do love a science fiction kind of story, and it's about finding out who your allies are and who your enemies are and how you work together to defeat your enemies. In this case, how to stop the space potato from taking all of Earth's water. It was really fun. It comes out tomorrow. I had a great time reading it. I didn't realize that First Dog on the Moon is actually a known comic artist at all, so I've got to look that up. The other book that they sent me was Wolf Girl 12. This is Shadows and Secrets by Anh Doh. Again, this is the ongoing serial that I have been reading. So in this one, Gwen is still trying to track down her parents who have gone missing since her home was invaded, and she's got a lead on where her father was by the fact that there are wanted posters up for him because he has escaped. And so she tries to go to where he was imprisoned to see if her mother is also held there. Along the way, she is helped with her pack of dogs, including this mystical wolf called Sunrise, who is my favourite character in the whole series. I love all the personalities of the dogs. This is one of those series where the dogs talk to Gwen, and my gosh, if dogs could talk, this is probably what they would be saying. As always, the book leaves off on a bit of a cliffhanger to tie you into the next book because it is a serial series, and it is perfect for that 8 or 9 to 12 age category. It also does feature lots of illustrations inside, so a long book, but it's not overly text heavy for what it is. All right, then moving into some non-fiction for the month. I listened to Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism by Amanda Montell. I got this out on Libby and it was such a fascinating read. I've talked to so many people about it this week since I finished reading it. And it was one of those really great books to have just on as an audiobook and just to listen to it because it puts into perspective so much you think about cults, because this is all around the language of it. So while Amanda Montell does talk about very well-known cults that have ended tragically or are, you know, very high profile like Scientology, but she also goes into things like Tupperware and into gyms and F45 and how they use language to make you think a certain way. I have to admit, I had not thought of it that way, and of course it makes perfect sense that that's exactly what those sort of groups are doing, because when you are trying to create community, I mean, one could possibly argue that the Bookish community, we have our own language that we all speak that people outside of it don't understand. That falls within the same category. Maybe not to the same extent, but it's all around how when you have common language, you draw people in, but it also has the potential to trap people within it and make you think in a particular way that you may or may not have initially thought of. So it was a fascinating read. And as someone who just loves language and loves learning how language is used in general, I find all of this stuff deeply fascinating. It was a really great read. If you haven't read it, it's a great audio listen and it's not very long and it just makes you think. I also listened to But You Don't Look Autistic at All by Bianca Toeps, and this one again was a book that I had out from Libby. I think I went through a stage where I was just requesting things that were all like 4 hours without being sped up, just so I could do little things around the place and feel like I'd accomplished something. But again, this one was also really interesting because it's Bianca's own journey of being diagnosed with autism and how reflecting back on her life, that has impacted her. And it does touch on the fact that, you know, being female and being diagnosed as autistic, the criteria is not written for women at all. So the process is different and it's not picked up early enough, and sometimes it takes decades before they're able to actually identify or pinpoint exactly what it is that makes them different to others, and not necessarily different in a bad way, just what sets them apart from others. And I find these stories really interesting because I think people's experiences always help to us to understand things more, to recognize things in ourselves, or to recognize them in our colleagues or our friends or the people around us, our social group, and to be, I don't know, a little bit more empathetic and mindful. And then 2 romance books that I read this week, actually both of them are that was not intentional. I have read other things this week but they're for other projects. The first one is The Bait by N.R. Walker, which is the second book in the Milvus Files. It follows on from both Tallow Wood and From the Kite. So they're romantic suspense stories, and you have both the main couples from those other 2 books that feature in this story, although it is primarily Asher and Harry's story from The Kite. But August and Jake do make an appearance from Tallow Wood as well at the beginning and at the end of the book. So for anyone who hasn't read Tallow Wood or The Kite, so Tallow Wood is a small town rural romance featuring a police detective and a local police officer. That's August and Jake. And there is a crossover book that I have read that's going to feature in another video, which is a crossover Christmas novella where these characters all meet. And then you have Harry and Asher. Harry is an Australian Special Forces soldier who was an undercover operative, essentially an assassin, whose cover was blown by his own government, so he was made a kite. And he falls in with Asher, who is also an assassin, a sniper by trade, whose history is kind of unknown. He was raised in an orphanage, so he doesn't know his history. Harry and Asher meet. Their story is about them, you know, making their way through who has targeted Harry and Asher. They end up in Tallow Wood. They've got new identities, they've been relocated there, and they just want to live a quiet life. But at the start of The Bait, all of that is shot. Jake and August don't know Harry and Asher's history, but August suspects something based on what happens in the crossover novella. And when some suspicious guys turn up in town asking for tips about how to hike a trail up near where Harry and Asher live, it triggers a bell for August, who goes up and tries to subtly warn Harry and Asher that there are these guys in town. This sets off a chain of events because Asher's primary contact has gone dark, and so when they go to try and make contact with him again, they find that he and his partner have been taken. And so it's a second adventure with Harry and Asher into Asher's past and who he is and where he was originally born and how he ended up in the program that he ended up in. And it is violent. It does feature scenes of torture, so be aware of that. It is quite a dark romantic suspense, but very action-packed as well and very fast-paced. And it is setting up a new couple in the book as well, which I'm actually really excited about. I really enjoyed the characters in this book. And thank goodness for N.R. Walker writing Australian stories, because I felt like that this week. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about is Off the Clock by Annabeth Albert, which is the second book in the Mount Hope series, which features first responders. Again, it is an story, but this is more contemporary romance. It's not romantic suspense. It is about Caleb and Tony. Tony has just gotten out of the Rangers, I think, and is returning to his hometown. He is going to be one of the oldest firefighter rookies around. He's in his 40s, and he's being trained by Caleb, who is much younger than him. And Caleb and Tony have this immediate attraction, which is complicated by the fact that they work together. Caleb is the current guardian of his younger brother, who is from Portland. His mother asked him to take care of him for a year because he was getting into trouble up there. This is a book that not only involves first responders, but also football, because Scotty is a big football player and Tony's nephews are also big football players within the town, but the football club is kind of in trouble, and so everyone bands together to boost this high school team, which also provides Tony with an alternative to his original plan of being a firefighter. So there's a lot going on in here, but this is very much about a small town found family, cozy kind of element. It was not my favorite of Annabeth Albert's works, I will admit, but I'm also not 100% certain that didn't have to do with my own mental state when I was reading it. This week has been tough and I struggled to pick up anything. Could probably have just defaulted to N.R. Walker all week, but I didn't want to just get stuck there. Although in hindsight, I probably should have just done that, because yeah, choosing books to read this week has been an absolute nightmare, and I'm ready for the holidays. So that's all I can say. That is my reading wrap up for this week. There is a ton of content coming out across December. I am probably going back to 3 videos a week just because there's so much to get out. I will not be doing any December daily kind of stuff. I won't even be doing a 12 days of Christmas or Vlogmas or whatever it is, but I will try and consistently have at least 3 videos a week. There might even be 4 this week because they've got a reset video. So stay tuned. All of that content is coming. In the comments, I'd love to know if you've read any of these books or if you're planning on picking any of them up. Otherwise, feel free to share something you have read and loved this week. And if you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't really have a comment, leave a book stack emoji down below. I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.